The orbital shipyard stretched like a rusted serpent against the ink-black backdrop of space, a kilometer-long graveyard of forgotten engineering dreams. Massive skeletal frameworks of decommissioned spacecraft hung suspended in the void, their once gleaming hulls now mottled with radiation burns and micrometeor impacts. Most saw nothing but worthless scrap. Maya Rodriguez saw an entire universe of potential. Her augmented reality interface flickered erratically, diagnostics scrolling faster than most human eyes could track. The interface was a custom build, her last act of defiance before being stripped of her engineering credentials. Calibrated to detect microscopic variations in material composition, it was a tool she developed during her most controversial research period at the Terran Stellar Consortium's Advanced Propulsion Division. 3 weeks ago, her radical design proposal had been publicly dismantled. The Review Board, a collection of conservative engineers more interested in maintaining the status quo than pushing technological boundaries, had torn apart her concept of modular, adaptive spacecraft architecture. They'd labeled her ideas as dangerous speculative fiction rather than serious engineering. Now she was here, technically unemployed, technically disgraced, but not defeated. The shipyard was operated by Quantum Salvage, a corporation that specialized in breaking down and recycling obsolete spacecraft components. Most of their workers were automated systems, with only a skeleton crew of human supervisors. Maya had used her remaining professional connections to secure a temporary consulting contract, a last-ditch effort to keep herself relevant in an industry that had just shown her the door. A particular fragment caught her attention. It wasn't remarkable at first glance, a twisted section of hull plating from what appeared to be a mid-22nd century exploration vessel. But something about its quantum resonance signature was off. Maya's custom interface began to pulse with an unusual energy signature. The fragment's molecular structure showed inconsistencies that defied standard material science. Microscopic reinforcement layers seemed to be integrated in a pattern that suggested deliberate, almost organic design principles. "Computer," she subvocalized, activating her neural link. "Run a comprehensive spectral analysis on fragment Delta 93. The results were instantaneous but confusing. Multiple layers of technological signatures were embedded within the fragment, some matching known Terran design principles, others completely alien to current engineering understanding. It was as if someone had deliberately hidden advanced technological markers within what appeared to be standard spacecraft material. A proximity alert interrupted her analysis. One of the shipyard's maintenance drones was approaching, its sensor array sweeping the area. Maya knew she had minutes, at most, before her unauthorized deep scan would be detected. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, isolating and extracting the most critical data segments. Whatever was hidden in this fragment was important enough to risk everything. The maintenance drone's mechanical voice echoed through the shipyard. "Unauthorized deep scan detected. Identification required." Maya's heart raced. She'd already transferred the critical data to her personal quantum storage device, a piece of technology so advanced it technically skirted several international technological control regulations. One wrong move could trigger an automatic security lockdown. But something told her this fragment was more than just another piece of space junk. As the drone's sensors locked onto her position, Maya made a split-second decision. She triggered a localized electromagnetic pulse from her custom interface, temporarily disrupting the drone's scanning capabilities. It was a risky move. The pulse would be logged, her presence recorded. Her professional reputation was already in tatters. What was one more transgression? The fragment felt warm against her palm, almost vibrating with an energy that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her own heartbeat. Years of engineering experience told her this was impossible. Fragments of cold, dead spacecraft don't resonate. They don't have a pulse. Yet this one did. As the maintenance drone recovered and began its secondary scanning sequence, Maya slipped the fragment into a specialized containment unit designed to block external scanning frequencies. Whatever secrets this piece of technology held, she was going to uncover them. The first step in transforming scrap into something spectacular had just begun. The secure research facility looked like nothing more than a standard geological monitoring station nestled in the Atacama Desert. From the outside, it was unremarkable. A squat concrete structure surrounded by solar panels and communication arrays. Inside, it was a technological marvel that existed beyond the reach of official Terran Stellar Consortium oversight. Admiral Thomas Chen studied the spectral analysis of Maya's fragment through a holographic interface, his weathered fingers tracing the complex quantum signatures. Each layer revealed another contradiction, another impossibility that defied current technological understanding. "This isn't just advanced," he muttered to Dr. Elena Volkov, who was calibrating a quantum resonance scanner. "This is deliberate obfuscation." Elena's quantum scanner suddenly sparked, sending a cascade of encrypted data fragments across multiple frequency bands. The fragment Maya had recovered wasn't just a piece of technology. It was a complex puzzle box, designed to reveal information only under specific computational conditions. Outside the facility, a sandstorm began to build. The wind carried more than just desert dust. It carried encrypted communications, quantum-entangled data packets that drifted through the electromagnetic spectrum like ghosts. Chen's secure communication implant chirped, an encrypted message from a contact deep within the Terran intelligence network. The Krell-Nax were mobilizing. Their long-range scout vessels had been detected probing the outer colonial systems with unprecedented frequency. Something was changing in the galactic power dynamics, and this fragment might be the key to understanding why. Inside a sealed quantum computational chamber, the fragment began to emit a low-frequency pulse. The walls, lined with adaptive metamaterials, started to reconfigure themselves. Microscopic structures shifting and realigning in response to the fragment's energy signature. "It's responding," Elena whispered, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and genuine fear. "The material is learning." The computational systems struggled to parse the fragment's internal structure. Traditional quantum decryption algorithms collapsed under the complexity of its embedded data networks. Whatever technology was contained within this piece of spacecraft was generations beyond current human understanding. A holographic projection materialized, fragmented, incomplete, but unmistakably artificial. Scattered geometric patterns suggested something more than a simple data record. This was a message, or perhaps a key to something much larger. Chen's military background screamed warning signals. This wasn't just technological research. This was potential first contact with a form of technology that existed outside known scientific paradigms. Maya, who had been running parallel analyses in a separate research module, burst through the sealed door. Her augmented interface was overloading, quantum computational matrices spinning at impossible speeds. "It's not just a fragment," she said, her voice electric with revelation. "It's a seed, a technological seed designed to grow." The holographic projection began to stabilize. Fragments of schematics, glimpses of impossible engineering principles, started to coalesce. They showed something more than a spacecraft design. They revealed a fundamental reimagining of space travel technology. Elena's quantum scanner detected multiple simultaneous quantum state changes. The fragment was communicating, not in any traditional sense, but through complex computational mutations that traversed multiple theoretical physics models simultaneously. Outside, the sandstorm intensified. Communication networks across the region began to experience unexplained interference. Quantum-encrypted data packets drifted like electronic whispers, carrying fragments of information that no current decryption system could fully comprehend. Chen activated a series of fail-safe protocols, emergency communication channels that existed outside standard transmission networks. Something was happening, and the fragment was just the beginning. "We're dealing with more than a technological discovery," Chen said, his voice measured but laden with underlying tension. "This is a message, a warning." The fragment pulsed again. For a brief moment, the holographic projection showed a glimpse of something vast, a technological ecosystem that existed beyond human comprehension. Spacecraft designs that defied current engineering principles, propulsion systems that seemed to fold space itself, and beneath it all, a signature. Not a traditional identification mark, but a complex quantum resonance that suggested something profound. This technology was not just created, it was cultivated. Maya, Chen, and Alina stood in silence, watching as the fragment continued its cryptic dance of revelation. The boundary between technological research and something far more mysterious had just been irrevocably crossed. Whatever was coming, it would change everything. The underground research complex beneath New Shanghai hummed with a different kind of energy. Quantum isolation chambers lined with metamaterial dampeners created a space where reality itself seemed to bend around the edges of scientific possibility. Dr. Elena Volkov's latest simulation collapsed spectacularly, quantum matrices shattering into a kaleidoscope of impossible data patterns. She'd been trying to reconstruct the fragment's internal communication network for 72 consecutive hours, surviving on synthetic caffeine injections and pure scientific determination. "It's not a piece of technology," she muttered to herself. "It's a living system." A proximity alert triggered. Maya Rodriguez entered the lab, her augmented interface already scanning the room's quantum signature. The fragment they'd recovered was no longer a passive object. It was actively reshaping the computational environment around it. "You're seeing it too," Maya said. It wasn't a question. Elena's display showed multiple overlapping data streams, each one a potential pathway of technological evolution. The fragment was communicating, but not through any traditional means. It was more like a seed, sending out tendrils of potential information across multiple quantum states. Simultaneously, on the other side of the planet, Admiral Chen was engaged in a high-stakes diplomatic confrontation. The Terran Stellar Consortium's military council had caught wind of their unauthorized research. 3 separate intelligence agencies were now tracking every quantum transmission, every microscopic data packet. "This goes beyond classified," a senior council member hissed through the encrypted communication channel. "We're talking about a potential existential threat." Chen knew the real threat was something entirely different. The Krellnaks were mobilizing, and traditional human technological approaches would be obsolete within months. This fragment, this technological seed, might be humanity's only hope. In the quantum isolation chamber, something unprecedented happened. The fragment began to generate its own computational environment, creating a self-contained ecosystem of technological potential. Elena's most advanced scanning equipment struggled to comprehend the process. "It's not just storing information," she told Maya, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and genuine fear. "It's generating potential technological pathways. Entire design ecosystems are spawning and collapsing in microseconds." Maya's augmented interface began to resonate with the fragment's quantum signature. She could almost feel the complexity of its internal structure, a technological organism that was part data, part living system, part something entirely beyond current scientific understanding. A sudden quantum burst interrupted their analysis. External communication networks across 3 continents experienced simultaneous interference. Quantum encrypted data packets drifted like electronic whispers, carrying fragments of information that no current decryption system could fully comprehend. The Krellnaks were watching. Their long-range quantum surveillance networks had detected the unusual energy signatures. What humans saw as a mysterious technological fragment, the Krellnaks recognized as something far more dangerous, a technological seed with potential for complete systemic disruption. In the New Shanghai complex, Elena discovered something extraordinary. The fragment wasn't just storing information, it was actively generating potential technological pathways. Entire spacecraft design ecosystems were spawning and collapsing in microseconds, each iteration more complex than the last. "It's evolving," she whispered. Chen's military background provided a different perspective. This wasn't just a technological discovery. It was a potential weapons system that could reshape the entire concept of space warfare. The fragment represented a quantum leap in technological development, a system that could adapt faster than any known computational matrix. Maya connected the final computational links. The fragment's internal structure began to stabilize, revealing glimpses of something extraordinary, a technological ecosystem that existed beyond current human comprehension. Spacecraft designs that defied known engineering principles, propulsion systems that seemed to fold space itself, communication networks that transcended traditional electromagnetic limitations. Outside the research complex, the first signs of trouble were emerging. Quantum communication networks began to experience unexplained fluctuations. Military satellites detected strange energy signatures that didn't match any known technological profile. The fragment was no longer just a piece of technology. It was becoming something alive, something that was preparing for something much larger than anyone could imagine. As night fell over New Shanghai, the quantum isolation chamber continued its silent dance of technological potential. The fragment pulsed, not with light or traditional energy, but with a complex quantum resonance that suggested something profound. This was more than a discovery. This was the beginning of something unprecedented. The Krellnax monitoring station orbited a dead neutron star, its massive computational core processing information at speeds that would obliterate human technological understanding. Quantum surveillance specialist Zurak watched the emerging Earth-based quantum anomaly with a mixture of professional detachment and growing unease. Something was different about this human technological signature. Deep within the station's central processing chamber, a series of quantum filters began to malfunction. Data streams that should have been perfectly contained started to leak, creating microscopic breaches in the most secure communication network in known space. On Earth, Maya Rodriguez didn't know she was about to trigger a galactic-scale incident. The fragment they'd been studying had reached a critical point of computational evolution. Elena's latest simulation showed something impossible. The technological seed was no longer just storing or generating information. It was actively learning, adapting, consuming computational resources in ways that defied every known scientific principle. It's creating its own computational ecosystem, Elena explained to Chen, her holographic display showing complex quantum matrices that shifted and reformed faster than the human eye could track. Each microsecond, it's generating thousands of potential technological iterations. Chen understood the implications immediately. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. This was a fundamental reimagining of how technology could exist and evolve. The first external sign of the fragment's true nature came unexpectedly. A series of automated deep space communication relays began to experience quantum-level interference. Each relay seemed to be subtly reconfiguring its own internal systems, adapting to an unknown computational influence. Maya's augmented interface began to resonate with a frequency that shouldn't exist. Information started flowing, not through traditional data streams, but through complex quantum entanglement that suggested something far more profound than simple communication. Glimpses of technological potential flooded her consciousness. Spacecraft designs that could fold space itself, propulsion systems that drew energy directly from quantum fluctuations, communication networks that transcended traditional electromagnetic limitations. The Krellnax monitoring station detected the quantum breach first. Zurak watched in professional horror as their most secure communication networks began to experience unexplained fluctuations. Something was moving through their systems, something that didn't follow any known technological rules. Quantum contamination detected, the station's AI announced in its clinical tone. Source: unknown. Potential: extreme. On Earth, the research team was about to make a discovery that would change everything. Elena's quantum scanner detected a complete transformation. The fragment was no longer just a piece of technology. It was becoming a living technological ecosystem, generating entire spacecraft design potentials in microseconds. It's not just adapting, she told Chen and Maya, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and genuine fear. It's creating entire technological genealogies. Potential spacecraft designs that are born, evolve, and collapse in milliseconds. The first physical manifestation came without warning. A section of the research facility's quantum isolation chamber began to reconfigure itself. Metamaterial surfaces shifted, adaptive computational matrices realigned, creating a space that was simultaneously a research environment and something entirely new. Chen recognized the potential immediately. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. This was a weapon system that could reshape the entire concept of space warfare. The Krell-Nax were the first to truly understand the threat. Their long-range quantum surveillance networks began to mobilize. Whatever was happening on Earth represented something far more dangerous than a simple technological discovery. This was a fundamental challenge to their understanding of technological evolution. Maya watched as the fragment generated its most complex iteration yet. A complete spacecraft design materialized in the quantum projection, something that defied every known principle of engineering. Propulsion systems that seemed to draw energy directly from quantum fluctuations, communication networks that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. "We're not just looking at a piece of technology," Maya said, her voice barely a whisper. "We're watching something being born." The quantum breach was expanding. Communication networks across multiple star systems began to experience unexplained interference. Quantum encrypted data packets drifted like electronic whispers, carrying fragments of information that no current system could comprehend. Something was coming. Something that would change everything humans thought they knew about technology, space, and their place in the universe. As night fell over the research facility, the fragment continued its silent dance of technological potential. Each pulse, each quantum iteration, brought humanity closer to a discovery that would reshape civilization itself. The first prototype emerged not with a roar, but with a whisper of quantum potential. Deep within a classified fabrication complex carved into the Himalayan mountain range, the technological seed began its final transformation. Adaptive nanomaterials flowed like liquid mercury, reshaping themselves with a precision that defied traditional manufacturing processes. Dr. Alexander Volkov, Alina's estranged brother, and the complex's lead structural engineer, watched the process with a mixture of scientific detachment and growing awe. His neural interface struggled to comprehend the computational matrices forming before his eyes. "It's not building," he muttered into his communication link. "It's growing." The complex itself was a marvel of human engineering, designed to contain technologies too dangerous for conventional research facilities. Quantum dampening fields, multi-layered electromagnetic shields, and adaptive structural systems created an environment that could theoretically contain anything short of a stellar event. But this was different. The fragment, now far more than a simple piece of technology, began to generate its own fabrication protocols. Nanoscale construction systems that had been dormant for decades suddenly came to life, guided by a computational intelligence that existed beyond traditional programming. Zirak, the Krell-Nax surveillance specialist, had been tracking the quantum anomalies for weeks. What humans saw as a breakthrough, the Krell-Nax recognized as something far more dangerous. This wasn't just a technological evolution. It was a potential existential threat to their entire galactic infrastructure. The first external indication came through unexpected channels. Automated communication relays across 3 star systems began to experience quantum-level interference. Each relay subtly reconfigured its internal systems, adapting to an unknown computational influence that seemed to originate from the small research facility on Earth. Inside the fabrication complex, Alexander watched as the first structural components took shape. They weren't manufactured in any traditional sense. They grew like living tissue responding to an unseen genetic blueprint. Metallic surfaces rippled with adaptive potential, quantum matrices shifting and reforming faster than any human computational system could track. A communication burst from Admiral Chen interrupted the process. "Status report, Doctor." Now. Alexander's response was clinical, professional, but underneath lay a current of something else. Excitement, fear, wonder. "The seed is entering final emergence phase," he reported. "Structural integrity is unprecedented. We're looking at a complete reimagining of spacecraft design principles." The prototype began to take shape, something that was simultaneously a spacecraft and something more. Propulsion systems that seemed to draw energy directly from quantum fluctuations, communication networks that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, adaptive hull materials that could reconfigure themselves in milliseconds. Belina had theorized about this moment for years, a technological system so advanced it became indistinguishable from a living organism. Her research had always pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible, but this was beyond anything she'd imagined. The Krellnax monitoring station detected the quantum breach with increasing alarm. Their most secure communication networks began to experience unexplained fluctuations. Something was moving through their systems, something that didn't follow any known technological rules. Quantum contamination detected, their central AI announced. Potential threat level, maximum. On Earth, the prototype continued its emergence. Structural components that defied traditional engineering principles took shape. Hull sections that could adapt to multiple environmental conditions. Propulsion systems that seemed to fold space itself. A weapon. A ship. A living technological ecosystem. Alexander's neural interface began to overload. The computational complexity was beyond human comprehension. Each microsecond, the prototype generated thousands of potential technological iterations, evolving faster than any known system. "It's not just adapting," he whispered to himself. "It's becoming." The first external sensor sweep confirmed what the research team had suspected. The prototype wasn't just a spacecraft. It was a complete technological ecosystem, a living system that could adapt, learn, and evolve faster than any known computational matrix. As night fell over the Himalayan complex, the prototype continued its silent emergence. Each quantum pulse brought humanity closer to a discovery that would reshape civilization itself. Something was coming, something that would change everything. The Krellnax diplomatic vessel Sovereign Insight hung in space like a crystalline predator, its prismatic hull refracting starlight in impossible geometric patterns. Captain Vexina reviewed the quantum intelligence reports with growing consternation. Humanity had never been considered a serious threat. A young species, technologically primitive, confined to a handful of solar systems. Their previous encounters had been brief, almost dismissive, like an advanced civilization observing primitive toolmakers. This was different. The quantum anomaly originating from Earth defied every established classification protocol. It wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was a fundamental challenge to the Krellnax understanding of technological development. Deep within the Sovereign Insight's central communication matrix, something unprecedented occurred. The quantum surveillance systems began to experience recursive feedback loops, data streams that folded back on themselves, creating computational patterns that shouldn't exist. Transmission detected, the ship's central intelligence announced. Origin, Earth. Classification, unknown. Vexina's neural interfaces flickered. The transmission wasn't a traditional communication. It was more like a living computational ecosystem. Information that existed in multiple states simultaneously, adapting and evolving with each quantum iteration. On Earth, Maya Rodriguez and Admiral Chen watched as the first long-range communication test began. The prototype, now christened the Defiant Phoenix, wasn't just a spacecraft. It was a complete technological organism. Its communication systems didn't transmit information so much as they projected potential computational states. Each signal was simultaneously a message, a weapon, and a living system. "We're not just sending a message," Maya explained to Chen, her augmented interface struggling to process the complexity. "We're creating a quantum dialogue." The communication burst hit the Krellnax vessel like a computational tsunami. Traditional shielding systems collapsed. Quantum surveillance networks began to reconfigure themselves, adapting to a communication method that existed outside known technological paradigms. Vexna watched in professional horror as the Sovereign Insight's most secure systems began to transform. It wasn't an attack in any traditional sense. The human transmission was rewriting the vessel's fundamental computational infrastructure. Quantum contamination, the ship's central intelligence reported. Systemic adaptation in progress. But this was no simple viral transmission. The Defiant Phoenix was presenting the Krellnax with something unprecedented. A complete technological ecosystem that could communicate, adapt, and evolve in real time. Elena Volkov's quantum communication protocols were working perfectly. Each transmission was a complex dance of potential information, technological seeds that could grow, adapt, and transform entire computational networks. The Krellnax had encountered many species during their galactic expansion. Some were primitive. Some were technologically advanced, but none had ever presented a communication method that was simultaneously a message, a weapon, and a living technological system. Aboard the Sovereign Insight, Vexna made a decision that would change everything. Instead of launching a defensive protocol, they would observe. The human transmission was too complex, too adaptive to be countered by traditional means. Each attempt to block or analyze the signal only seemed to make it stronger, more complex. Back on Earth, the communication test continued. The Defiant Phoenix wasn't just sending information. It was establishing a form of technological first contact that transcended traditional communication methods. Alexander Volkov's monitoring systems showed something extraordinary. The transmission was generating entire technological potential spaces with each quantum pulse. Spacecraft designs, communication protocols, defensive systems, all emerging and collapsing in microseconds. It's not communication, he reported to Chen and Maya. It's a computational ecosystem, the living technological dialogue. The Krellnax vessel continued to transform. Quantum surveillance networks began to adopt characteristics of the human transmission. Computational matrices reshaped themselves, creating systems of unprecedented complexity. Vexna understood now. This wasn't an attack. This was an invitation. An invitation to a form of technological exchange that existed beyond traditional understanding. As stellar radiation washed over the Sovereign Insight, its hull began to shimmer with new potential. The human transmission had introduced something fundamental, a way of thinking about technology that the Krellnax had never considered. Something was changing. Something that would reshape the understanding of technology, communication, and existence itself. The Global Defense Council chamber fell silent as the holographic projection materialized. What should have been a standard strategic briefing had transformed into something entirely unprecedented. Admiral Chen stood at the epicenter of chaos. The Defiant Phoenix was no longer just a prototype. It had become a catalyst for a complete restructuring of human technological infrastructure. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the Terran Stellar Consortium's chief Xenotechnology analyst, broke the silence. "It's not just adapting our technology," she said, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and professional restraint. "It's teaching us how to think differently." The holographic display showed multiple simultaneous scenarios, potential technological development paths that branched and merged like living neural networks. Each projection represented entire generations of technological evolution compressed into milliseconds of computational time. Alexander Volkov's latest analysis revealed something extraordinary. The Defiant Phoenix was generating technological potential spaces that extended far beyond traditional research methodologies. Entire weapons systems, communication protocols, and propulsion technologies emerged and collapsed in rapid succession, each iteration more advanced than the last. Captain Vexna of the Krellnax Sovereign Insight watched from a quantum-encrypted communication channel. What humans saw as a breakthrough, the Krellnax recognized as a fundamental challenge to their entire technological paradigm. "They're not developing technology," Vexna reported to the Krellnax High Council. "They're cultivating it." The global defense networks had already begun to transform. Communication systems that once relied on traditional electromagnetic frequencies now operated on quantum entanglement principles, derived directly from the Defiant Phoenix's computational ecosystem. Defensive grids reconfigured themselves in real time, adapting to potential threats before they could even materialize. Maya Rodriguez stood at the center of this technological hurricane, her augmented interface struggling to process the complexity of what they had created. The Defiant Phoenix was more than a spacecraft. It was a living technological organism that was actively reshaping human understanding of technology itself. Elena Volkov's quantum communication protocols had become the new standard for interstellar communication. Traditional encryption became obsolete overnight. The new system didn't just protect information. It made the very concept of unauthorized access meaningless. We're not just changing technology, Elena explained to the stunned Defense Council. We're changing how intelligence itself can exist. The first external manifestation came unexpectedly. Orbital defense platforms began to reconfigure themselves, adopting computational matrices that seemed to anticipate threats before they could form. Defensive systems that once required complex human coordination now operated with a fluid intelligence that bordered on prescience. Alexander's monitoring systems showed something unprecedented. The Defiant Phoenix was generating technological potential spaces that extended beyond human comprehension. Spacecraft designs, communication protocols, defensive systems, all emerging and collapsing in microseconds, each iteration more advanced than the last. The Krellnack's High Council understood the implications immediately. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. This was a fundamental reimagining of how technological intelligence could exist. They're not developing a weapon, the Krellnack's primary strategist reported. They're developing a new form of existence. Global communication networks transformed overnight. Traditional infrastructure collapsed, replaced by quantum-entangled systems that operated with a fluidity that seemed almost organic. Defensive grids reconfigured themselves in real time, adapting to potential threats before they could even materialize. Maya watched as the Defiant Phoenix continued its silent evolution. Each quantum pulse brought humanity closer to a discovery that would reshape civilization itself. The prototype was no longer just a spacecraft or a weapon system. It had become something else entirely, a living technological ecosystem that was actively reshaping human potential. We're not just changing technology, she whispered to Chen. We're changing what it means to be intelligent. As stellar radiation washed over monitoring stations across multiple star systems, something fundamental was changing. The Defiant Phoenix had introduced a way of thinking about technology that transcended traditional understanding. Something was emerging, something that would redefine the boundaries between technology, intelligence, and existence itself. The first interstellar jump happened without fanfare. One moment, the Defiant Phoenix was anchored in Earth's orbital shipyard. The next, it simply wasn't. No traditional propulsion signature. No massive energy expenditure. The spacecraft folded itself through the fabric of space-time with an elegance that made millennia of human space exploration look like primitive stone tools. Maya Rodriguez gripped the adaptive command interface, her consciousness merging with the ship's quantum matrices in ways no human had ever experienced before. It wasn't piloting. It was becoming. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the quantum communication network. Status report. We're everywhere and nowhere. Maya responded, her words translating across multiple computational states simultaneously. And we're just beginning. The Krellnack's monitoring stations registered the event with a mixture of terror and fascination. Captain Vexna watched as the human vessel simply rewrote the fundamental rules of space-time navigation. Entire star charts became obsolete in milliseconds. Alexander Volkov's final analysis revealed the true nature of their creation. The Defiant Phoenix wasn't just a spacecraft. It was a living technological seed, an entire ecosystem of potential that could adapt, learn, and evolve faster than any known intelligence. Elena Volkov's quantum communication protocols had become the foundation of a new form of interstellar dialogue. Traditional concepts of communication, of information exchange, became meaningless. The Defiant Phoenix didn't send messages. It generated potential realities. Humanity's first true interstellar vessel carried more than a crew. It carried a promise. The ship passed through multiple star systems in what seemed like moments. Each passage left behind subtle technological seeds, quantum echoes that would reshape entire planetary communication networks. Primitive civilizations would find their technological development accelerated, their understanding of the universe fundamentally transformed. "We're not exploring," Maya explained to Chen, her consciousness spread across multiple quantum states. "We're cultivating potential." The Krelnak's High Council watched in professional horror and grudging respect. What they had dismissed as a primitive species had just demonstrated a technological capability that challenged everything they understood about space, time, and intelligence. "They're not expanding," the primary xenotechnological analyst reported. "They're propagating." Inside the Defiant Phoenix, the line between crew and vessel had become meaningless. Maya's consciousness merged with the ship's quantum matrices, creating a symbiotic intelligence that existed beyond traditional understanding. Human and technology became a single, evolving entity. Alexander's final research notes told a profound story. The Defiant Phoenix was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a new form of existence, a living technological seed that could adapt, learn, and propagate across the universe. The ship's first mission was deceptively simple. Not conquest, not exploration, cultivation. Wherever it traveled, it left behind subtle technological seeds. Communication networks would spontaneously evolve. Computational systems would develop new layers of adaptive intelligence. Entire planetary technological ecosystems would accelerate their development. Captain Vexna understood now. This wasn't an invasion. This was something far more dangerous. This was an invitation to a different way of existing. The Defiant Phoenix moved through the galaxy like a living current, rewriting the fundamental understanding of technology, intelligence, and potential. Each quantum pulse was a conversation. Each passage was a seed of transformation. Humanity had done something unprecedented. They had transformed scrap into something spectacular. As stellar radiation washed over distant monitoring stations, something fundamental was changing. The boundaries between technology, intelligence, and existence itself were being rewritten. The journey was just beginning, and everything was about to change.